If you pitch a tent on the shores of Lake Svir in modern-day Belarus, you will likely have the entire place to yourself. It is peaceful, quiet, and appears completely untouched. But that feeling of pristine wilderness is an illusion. You are standing in a manufactured void. 80 years ago, this broader region, stretching across Belarus, Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine, was packed with bustling Jewish towns. These were not remote outposts. They were dense centers of commerce, religion, and social life. The Holocaust murdered these populations, and the perpetrators made a deliberate effort to bulldoze the physical footprint they left behind. Synagogues, homes, and entire neighborhood blocks were wiped off the map. For the survivors, this created what historians call missing gravestone syndrome. It is a specific kind of trauma where you cannot mourn because there is no body to bury and no physical grave to visit. Realizing they could never return to build stone monuments on the ruins of their homes, survivors began building monuments out of paper called Yizkor books. This was a grassroots effort that began as early as 1943. While the war was still raging, survivor organizations and individuals started collecting accounts to ensure their communities wouldn't vanish from history. These aren't just lists of the dead. As this diagram shows, they were comprehensive reconstructions of life. They mapped out the local rabbis, the youth groups, the town characters, and the layout of the streets. This structured approach provided a substitute for the geography they had lost. Because the physical towns were gone, these books became the remaining place where a community's social layout and families could still be located and remembered. To see how difficult it was to reconstruct a town from memory, we can look at the case of the Ostrovtsa Yizkor book. The project was a grueling 20-year struggle. The small publishing committee in Israel spent decades fighting for funding from survivors in Toronto and New York, while cycling through professional editors who struggled to organize the massive amounts of trauma and testimony. The editors published the book in 2 languages. Hebrew represented their Zionist future, and Yiddish preserved the lost past. The inscription explicitly declares this book serves as a gravestone on the unmarked grave of 17,000 murdered Jews, a monument written in blood and tears. For these people, creating a Yizkor book wasn't a simple hobby. It was a transnational act of reclamation, a way to claw their history back from the people who tried to erase it. Today, these books have a ritual function. In many Jewish communities, survivors and their descendants use them to recite the Kaddish, the mourner's prayer, treating the pages as the physical site of a family grave. Their existence also challenges the idea of a post-war myth of silence. These hundreds of volumes prove that survivors were documenting their history and screaming into the archive long before the rest of the world was ready to listen. This changes how we have to look at the solitary traveler at Lake Svir. We can no longer see that empty nature as pristine. We have to see it as a landscape that was forcibly cleared. Physical monuments are fragile. Stone headstones tilt and sink into the earth. Their inscriptions weather and decay until the names are lost to the moss. The perpetrators succeeded in clearing the physical landscape, but they failed to erase the memory of the people who lived there. While the towns were dismantled, the survivors built a record of their lives that has outlasted the wood and stone of the original streets.